FitLab can also offer, but things that you can take home as coaches or athletes and implement into your training programs or into your athletes training programs. So I'll introduce Steve. Welcome, mate. You can give the guys a bit of a rundown of some of the things you've done as well, but I'll leave you to it.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks for coming tonight. I've had a very fortunate career that I've been involved in a lot of sport, which is the thing I wanted to do all my life. And I'm sort of winding down a little bit now, but I'm still heavily involved in coaching and mentoring, and also a couple of days a week I come up to the FitLab. My first life was as a PE teacher. Now, that's all I thought I ever wanted to do, be a PE teacher, and then I got the opportunity to get into professional rugby league, which I did with a couple of clubs, the Cowboys and the Broncos, and then I was fortunate enough to work with the Wallabies when we won the World Cup, which is probably the highlight of my career in 1999. And then of course we won the World Cup, everyone thought Australia was the fittest team in the world, so I kept on getting offers to go to other countries. Whether we were the fittest or not, I don't know, we won. Might have the best team as well. And then I took up a job in France, and 2 years there I ended up getting sacked. I ended up coaching the side, I got the bullet, and went to another club with a French coach, Bernard Laporte, in Bordeaux, where I'm actually heading back to tomorrow. So when I finish tonight, I'm driving back to Brisbane, getting on the plane to head over to the south of France tomorrow. So then I came back to Australia and set up a company called Nance, which is an RTL in the fitness industry, plus a wellness. We have preventive wellness programs. And then I got sort of offered a job to go to England as a consultant, and I ended up going to England for 1 week and ended up staying for 5 years. And so I had to go and set up a rugby league program in London. Ended up going to Fulham, working in the EPL for 3 years, which as I was explaining before, was enjoyable. It was tough work though. English footballers aren't the greatest sportsmen that you've ever come across. They get paid too much to do a lot, not a lot, compared to the rugby league, rugby union players I've worked with. I worked there for 3 years. I went through 3 managers in 3 years, which you do over in England. And then I ended up getting sacked there with everyone, all the staff, and a new manager came in, and which you've got to look. Unfortunately, it happens in professional sport. And then I went up to Leeds and worked in their rugby league program for 3 years. And finally, I came back to Australia and I said, enough's enough. I'm not going back overseas anymore. So, despite a couple of good offers to go back to places, rugby clubs, I've stuck in Australia. I'm back working. I'm actually back coaching a school with a rugby team at the moment. Not very successfully, but I'm coaching them. I've missed their last 2 games, unfortunately, because I've already planned this trip overseas 2 years ago. That's my little snippet of work. The challenge at the moment is to help Chris and the other FitLab people get this high performance unit up and running. I think it's been so far very successful because people have been prepared to listen and learn, and Chris has been fantastic with I gave him a fair bit of advice on setting this place up, and we're now getting another high performance centre next door, and it's getting bigger and better. We now have 20 something sports people coming here. We have 100 something athletes, and we're taking over the rugby league program for the Mustangs. We've taken over the Darling Down from the Union Sevens. We've got a basketball program, a volleyball program that'll be at night. Plus, one of the really interesting things is we're starting to get into some oncology programs for ladies with breast cancer, which I find exceptionally challenging. And my philosophy is, no matter who you are, the same principles of training apply. So what I talk to you about tonight, I'll talk about the Broncos, or I'll talk about the Wallabies, or I'll talk about Joe Blow. You as coaches and participants have got to be the most important thing. You've got to treat your athletes as the most important thing, no matter what level they're at. And people say to me, oh, what about when you work Alfie Lang and Kevin Walters, and so they were good blokes. Okay, but I didn't treat them any differently to a lady I look after who's in her 80s now, who's had severe depression. So it's the principles apply to all sports. This tonight is looking specifically at the pre-season, and it's probably designed mainly for people, even though it's not exclusive to it, that play a winter sport. But if you reverse it, if you're involved in a summer sport, then just reverse the time frame. This is the pre-season. So what we're going to look at is how we divide the pre-season. Now you can call it what you like, and people do, they call it the anatomical development stage, the anatomical adaptation phase, and whatever it is. But it's a period of time that you do all the bloody hard work, okay? Because you're preparing for a season, and that's why it's called pre-season. All right, if you just go back to that one slide, Corey, for us, just the reason I put this up, this is the American model. They have a 4-2 preparation model, usually in their sports and their professional sports. So they prepare for 4 months and usually play for a couple of months. They prepare for 5 months, they play for 3 months. Their seasons aren't massively long, especially in the colleges. And in fact, they can't train for long periods of time. They're banned from playing, putting the pads on in American football until a certain time. They're not allowed to go to practice until a certain time. Okay, so it's a real periodised model in America, and that's one of my favourite sayings. If I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe, because the sharpening of the axe is preparation for what you're going to be doing. So we're going to talk tonight about sharpening the axe to get our players ready for a season. Okay. This is footage of the Broncos in the 2000s. It's the last time I worked there. My last stint there was 2003 to 2005. And the black and white photos are when they got knocked out by the Panthers in the semi-finals. And Wayne Bennett asked me to go back and do some work there as a consultant to run the fitness program. So the coloured stuff is when we started. So now this is the general preparation phase of our pre-season. We're generally preparing these guys to play a season of rugby league. So if you want to look at physiological terms, the anatomical adaptation is we do broad-based conditioning, followed by usually hypertrophy or strength weights. All right, and I use the analogy of a pencil. This is the real blunt end of sharpening the pencil. This is the blunt part. We're nowhere near the pointy edge yet. And so for these guys, this is November and December, preparing for a late February, early March competition phase. So there's 2 months of general preparation up until Christmas. And as you can see, there's no footballs yet, there's no rugby fields, and it's pretty tough work. It's changed a fair bit. They don't do as much of the broad-based work anymore. They've found that it's been probably overdone a little bit, and probably we overdid it a bit if I look back at it. But these types of hard conditioning sessions were done a lot of the time just for mental toughness. And it was only on a Friday afternoon that we did it. And we didn't run up the sand hills out of Northern Ireland. We just did that once just to see who was going to break, who was going to pack it in when it got really tough. And it did get tough, I can assure you. Because that sand hill out there was pretty steep. They had to carry a brick with a number. So there were 4 people in the team, and they had a brick with a big number on it, a house brick. And they had to go out to that boat and swim out to the boat, drop the brick, and then the next guy had to go and get it and carry it up the hill and so forth. So this is their weights room work at this time, general strength work. Okay, because the players you see here, Gordon Tallis, Shane Webke, Petro Servicina, these sort of guys, they've been lifting for 10, 12, 15 years. They can't get any bigger. So we don't want them to get any bigger, we just want them to get stronger and more powerful. So most of their pre-season work was just pure strength work. No hypertrophy work, no work to get muscles bigger. But for you, if you people are coaching young people like the Mustangs boys, they'll be going straight on a hypertrophy program. A program designed to increase muscle content, specifically designed for it. You get muscle content from strength work, you get it from endurance work. You don't get much from power work. So this is why, this is the first time they touched the footy, and this is in December. So, but now this is after Christmas, this is a specific preparation phase. So they're back on the field at Fulcher Road at Red Hill, and they start doing specific stuff. Wrestling, their weights get very strong. The repetitions, very small, very heavy work. So this feeds into power work. So I'm going to show you a little diagram in a minute, and we start bringing in the anaerobic components. So this has gone from November, December, January, February, and this is a period of time I'm going to talk about. Then they start playing in March, the in-season phase. That's the only bloke that's still there when I was there. Sam Tyler, he's retiring this year. And you'll see a lot of faces of people that, but you can see this is the time we did all the hard work. You can't train blokes like this all the time, all year round. You'll kill them, okay? People think you've got to flog people the whole time. You can't. Your body can't just take a flogging all the time. But there are periods of time you have to train exceptionally hard. You have to go overload to the point of nearly breaking them sometimes. And you don't want that to happen. And the pre-season component is right on that knife's edge. Okay, so what we've tried to do, is that following me all right, or are we going too fast? What they're trying to do is, in the gym, we're trying to develop strength. But we know that if we can get people bigger by doing hypertrophy training, we can feed into strength, and that then can feed into power. Because power is a component of strength plus speed of movement. The thicker we can get the muscles, the stronger we can get them, the more powerful we get them. It's a very simple formula. But a lot of people don't work on that formula because they think they're just going to do strength weights all the time. And we have guys down there that can bench press 180, 190 kilos. I've been in places where blokes can bench 210 kilos. You know, football players. I'm talking about professional powerlifters. I'm talking about footy players. And they might have been able to squat 240, 250, 260 and so forth. But they weren't necessarily the best players. They might have been the strongest in the gym, but they weren't necessarily the best players. The best players I found were the guys that could generate the most power. Sometimes they were strong, but they were also very powerful. Because when you're playing a contact sport, it's not how much you can push or pull, it's how fast you can move. Like in rugby league. If you have a look at the GPS data, you'll find that your contacts are either 8 metres in professional rugby league, 8 metres with a collision, or 12 metres with a deceleration. Understand what I mean by that? I go 8 metres with the ball or without the ball and I smack someone, or I'm not involved in the tackle and I go through to 12 metres, I stop and I have to get back again. So with that grid, it's no good me being able to run exceptionally fast at the 30 or 40 metre mark. It's fantastic if I can run fast then, but I've got to accelerate, generate as much power as I can, as quickly as I can, because the race is run if I don't. I'm going to get smacked at either 8 metres or I'm going to accelerate at 12 metres. That's the bread and butter. In rugby union, it's a little bit different. In rugby union, the forwards do all this sprinting from what they call compromised positions. They head up someone's bum, on the bottom of a ruck, lifting someone in a line out or whatever. Okay, the forwards never start in a three-point stance or on the blocks or whatever. They're never like that. They're always with their backs turned or on their knees or on their back. Then they have to sprint. Whereas the backs did 80% of their sprinting from a rolling start. In other words, they're jogging or going half pace and then accelerating. So the training you do for those people is all different. The power work they do is all different. It has to be by what they do. We've got volleyballers in here, and we want to make them as powerful as possible. Like, I was telling you a statistic today that the person that what's the person who does all the jumps in volleyball, Chris? The centre does in a 5-set game 700 jump squats. 700. So that'd be 7 sets of 100 jump squats you'd prescribe in the gym, which is unbelievable when you think about it. And you want that person to be able to jump squat once, but you also want them to jump squat 700 times. In other words, you want them to be powerful right throughout the whole game. And that's what we'll talk about a little while with power and endurance. Okay, so how do we do this? For the kids, for kids or anybody, we offer them resistance training. Now, resistance training doesn't have to be weights. It doesn't have to be weights, but the easiest way to do it is with weights, because we can control the resistance. And we've just written a whole lot of programs on our webpage, and a whole lot of programs for the mustangs and younger kids, just using therabands, okay, as a form of resistance, as a safe form of resistance. So What is it? Resistance training is anything we put on someone else's body, your own body weight, the wall, the roof, whatever you're pushing or pulling against. Or the easiest way to control it is with machines or weights. And that's why we use resistance training, but weights as a most popular form of resistance training. We can increase just gradually if we want, we can decrease gradually, or whatever we need to do. So the benefits, what are the benefits? For sport, the benefits are unbelievable. Now some sports you play, you don't want to get bigger, but you still want to be powerful. Alright? Why? Because you've got a weight limit, or because you've got a very aerobic component in that sport. Aussie rules is a classic. Use Sematatite, an Aussie rules team versus a rugby or a rugby league team. Have a look at their different physiques, because they're running up to 18 kilometres in a game, Aussie rules. Now 18 kilometres isn't very far to running in 2 hours. We could all do it, but we couldn't all do 3 or 4 Ks of sprinting amongst that 18 kilometres. In other words, that's 3 or 4 kilometres of running as fast as we can, which is very, very demanding. So they can't afford to be big, really big, muscly blokes. And the amount of contacts they have, nowhere near as much. They do have massive contacts, but they don't have them regularly. So the benefits of resistance training are massive, okay? Health-wise for females, they're massive. I'm not here to talk about osteoporosis and that tonight, but the evidence is there to suggest that all young girls should be dragged into the gyms, kicking and screaming, and given a set of dumbbells and getting stuck into it. Alright? The evidence coming out now about the benefits of resistance training with people recovering from illness. Okay, unbelievable. The benefits of resistance training for people preventing illness. Unbelievable. It's a medicine. Okay? It should be treated as such. So, when we use weights, we've got to make sure it's safe and we're careful with it. We don't prescribe the same thing for a 13-year-old as we do for an 18-year-old. And we don't prescribe the same thing we do for a 13-year-old who's never done anything and a 13-year-old who's done some stuff. We look more at their lifting age than the chronological age. Now, we have some kids coming here that lift better than the 14, 15-year-olds. They lift better than the 20-year-olds. Of course, they've actually had a better program at the start, and also because they've got a 2 or 3 year lifting age, whereas the 20-year-olds, see, I could go and drag someone off the street who's never picked up a dumbbell. They might be 30 years old. They will do the same program as a 12-year-old starting out, or they should do, or something similar. Okay? What exercises do you prescribe? If you want to get bigger, you prescribe hypertrophy weights. If you want to get stronger, you prescribe strength weights. If you want to get more powerful, you prescribe power weights. Okay, muscular endurance, prehab, rehab. But there's a new era coming through. It's not all black and white. Now we do a strength set, now we do an endurance set, now we do a power set, because there's all sorts of things blending. We don't have purity in our lifting profiles anymore, because a game of rugby league or rugby union or soccer or Aussie rules isn't pure. So now we have things such as strength endurance. Now when I went to university, strength was over that side and endurance was over that side. And there was a big gap in between. But now we combine the two, because we realise the benefits in sport to be able to be strong, but be able to endure that strength. Repeat contractions. We now have things like called power endurance. Again, when I was at university, power's on that side, endurance is on that side. Never the twain shall meet. But now they realise that we not only have to be powerful for the first contact, but we've got to be powerful for the whole game. We've got to be able to endure power. And now we have things like strength hypertrophy. We provide them here at this complex. So we're actually getting stronger, but a focus on getting bigger and stronger at the same time. Which is, again, 20 years ago you would have laughed at me if I said that's what we're going to do, but now everyone's into it. How many people have ever heard of German volume training? Russian 10x10s, okay? Those blokes, the East Germans and the Russians, they used to have a bit of assistance. They used to be whacking a fair bit of stuff in their arms as well. But they would do 10 sets of 10 of an exercise, which is 100 repetitions at a 10 RM strength. Not 100 sets, just a lesser weight. 100 sets of one exercise. So 100 sets of squats. Not 100 sets, 100 reps. 100 reps of squats, 100 reps of bench press, 100 reps of lat pull down, 100 reps of cleans, whatever they were doing. And the program used to take 2.5 hours. They were getting stronger, but they were enduring the strength. Okay, any questions? If you've got any questions, just ask me. Don't save it to the end. If there's something you don't understand, if I've said something that you're not quite clear on the terminology. Do you understand what hypertrophy means? Hypertrophy is the opposite of atrophy. Atrophy is when your muscles get smaller. Hypertrophy is when your muscles get bigger. Okay? So, for this time of the year, you've got to have the exercises feeding. Now, if we're talking about being strong and powerful during the season, okay, and maybe some power endurance, we can't do that for the whole year. We just talked to the volleyball people tonight. They've been doing power work because of the structure of their seasons. There's not just one season. They go nearly 365 days of the year in competition. Okay, so we've just backed off their power work. Usain Bolt is just making a career in soccer. When he was running, he only ran fast for 3 months of the year. Why? Because he couldn't hold that speed for 12 months of the year. So all he did was work out his preparation, 6 months of preparation, 3 months of running fast, and then he backed off again. And he did it each year. We can't keep doing the same thing all the time. So what we've got to do is work out what's important. Now, if we want to concentrate on power and power endurance, we've got to maintain our strength. But to get stronger, for most of us, it's best to try and get a bit bigger first. Now, girls aren't going to get anywhere near as big as the boys. And that's not a sexist statement. It's a fact. Because you do not produce testosterone, or the amount you produce is minimal. Okay, so you've got to face the fact that you girls that prescribe weights to aren't going to turn into Arnold Schwarzeneggers. They're going to get bigger a little bit, but they're going to get very, very strong and powerful. And they're still going to be athletic looking, they're still going to be attractive. It's not going to be a downfall in their relationships with boys or other girls. Okay. So in this phase now, we start with hypertrophy or strength. When the season's getting closer, then we start introducing power. But we're not going to talk about that tonight because that's the in-season or the right at the end of the pre-season phase. So it's the second phase. So we've got to hang on to this as often as we can, as long as we can, because it's the key to all the other resistance type training sort of thing. All right. So when's the optimum time to start? Most of you start your winter sports in probably March, would you? Rugby league, rugby union, soccer, Aussie rules. Okay. So if you're starting in March, you've probably got to start before Christmas, ideally. But you might be playing at a level that doesn't warrant that, because if you're giving them, like in schools, 6 or 8 weeks Christmas vacation, it's no good doing much work before Christmas, because if they don't do anything over the Christmas break, they're going to lose everything they gained. Christmas comes at a terrible time in Australia. Okay, right smack in the middle of the pre-season phase. I can't do anything about it. It always comes on the 25th of December. And it's a time even professional sporting teams have breaks. And they usually use it as a week to 10 days of regeneration, just to get a break, do a little bit of maintenance work, and come back and get stuck into the specific preparation. So there's a big difference between general preparation and specific preparation. And the two names explain what they are.
If you don't have like an off season, when do you start? Like if you have many sports?
If you have many sports, you've got to be smart, even smarter than I am. Okay, because you've got to really plan what you do. We've got a couple of girls, especially the girls in here, that do 2 or 3 sports at a reasonable level. Okay, what do? I know you play 2 sports. One of the girls that comes in here, there's a cricketer and a rugby league player. there's probably two polarised sports couldn't get further apart. Preparation for cricket and preparation for rugby league. Okay? And the rugby league people wanted to train for rugby league and the cricket people wanted to train for cricket. So what do? You've got to be smart about it. You can't just do all the things. You've got to compromise. You've got to complement. Okay? But it's very hard. And you must have periods of time off. You've got to have periods of regeneration.
Right, and that's Steve. How long do you say to have off?
Well, you're not having anything completely off. I'm not saying you're not. It doesn't mean you have to stop training. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. You can still train. You can still do some stuff yourself. Like in rugby, professional rugby league and professional rugby union and professional Aussie rules, they all have the same model. You must have 4 weeks a year away from the club. That's in your contract. Doesn't mean if the coach says, listen, you better get off your ass and get in here for the next couple of weeks in the off-season, you won't be playing next year. That bloke won't do it. But it is not in that you're not allowed to bring them in. Okay? It's against their contractual law. So 1 month they work, but see, also they work in contact sports, a maximum of 30 contact games a year. That's their model. So 30 weeks of contact. You know, the captain of the English rugby union team, Johnson, when they won the World Cup in 2005, and they beat the Wallabies, 2003, I mean, they beat the Wallabies in Australia. The year before, he played 64 games in a year of contact sport. Right? And the English rugby union, I remember reading this article, they couldn't understand why he was always injured. So you work it out, there's 52 weeks in a year, and he played 64 games of high-level rugby union. And they couldn't figure out why he was always in. So they adopted the Australian model. I helped write that model in 1998 that said that no player plays more than 30 games a year. That is the maximum. They put him back to 30 and he was fresh, won the World Cup.
So you've got a bunch of hockey players still want to get back.
Yeah, well, the hockey, depending on what level you play, my niece was in the Hockey Roos, okay, and she was based at the Institute in Perth, and she used to tell me that they played nearly all year round, and I said, they've got to give you some time away, and they said, oh no, you've got to stay in Perth, you've got to do this, and they were always flying to somewhere to play in a tournament, or some international team was coming over. The good part about hockey is there's not a lot of contact. Right, saying that, she's just gone over to Holland or Belgium to play professionally, and the first training game she got knocked out cold last week, got flattened. Okay? But there's not the same contacts you have in rugby league or rugby union. So in contact sports, you've got to let your body recover. It's really important, because if you don't, you'll degenerate. And over a period of time, you're not made to run into that wall 50 or 60 times every Saturday and Sunday. You might be able to do it a couple of weeks, but not over 26 or 30 weeks or 36 weeks. English football, the EPL, the bad teams, Fulham wasn't a great team, they're only a small club, competing against the Manchester Uniteds and the Chelseas and Liverpools. But we played either trial matches or competition games for 46 weeks of the year. 46 weeks. That meant they had 6 weeks away from the club. That's all they had. And they used to party the whole time because they were there for 46 weeks. 46 weeks they had to turn up to train. 46 weeks they had to go through physio and all sort of stuff. And it's a long period of time. So that's why this preparation is very, very important, especially if your season's long.
Just on the flip side then, as opposed to how much time you need off, how much time do you need to see like grit, the natural gain of strength and your hypertrophy, whatever phase you're going into? Is there a minimum?
Yeah, well, if you look at just pure physiology, you usually got what they call a 4-week neural adaptation. What's that mean? Adaptation. What's that mean? Anyone know? That means your brain adapts to whatever you're starting to do. So say I said, right, tonight everybody here is going to start on the hypertrophy program. We're going to start with slow eccentric movements, and we're going to concentrate on delaying our eccentric phase on the premise that we're going to try and get bigger. For the first 4 weeks of that program, because it's all new to you, you'll be neurally adapted. You won't actually get a physiological gain. You'll get a gain in what you can do, but it's not physiological. It's after that 4-week period that you start getting a physiological advantage. And that's why most programs normally go 4, 6, 10, 12 weeks. So you have mesocycles, blocks like that. So to answer your question, it's usually after about the 4-week mark you start seeing a gain. Okay, whether it's in strength or in power. You will get early gains early on, but this is when the physiology. So the more we can do then after that, we're starting to get gain and gain and gain and gain. But what happens is the stimulus starts to drop off and we start to lose the gain. So we're starting to do the program and we're not getting anything out of it. We're still bench pressing 125 kilos that we were doing a month ago. Okay, we're still squatting or we're still running 3 minutes 30 Ks that we're doing 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. So that's the whole principle of periodisation. We have to change the stimulus, okay, to get the next benefit. And that's why it fits in beautifully in winter sports, 2 months of hypertrophy, 1 month of strength and power into the preparation phase for the competitive season. And that's just looking at the resistance training part, not the conditioning. So when you've got a poor adaptation, one of the principles of training is what they call the floor-to-ceiling principle. When you've got the floor-to-ceiling, the ceiling is your Olympic athlete, or the person's been training for 10 or 15 years, and can't go any faster, they can't get stronger, they can't get more powerful. They're right up the roof. They can't push the roof off. But a lot of the younger people are right down near the floor. So everything we do, they get a benefit out of. And we can keep the training, the cycles going for a lot longer because it's new to them. They get benefit. You can nearly, with the plates in here, put a 2.5 kilo plate on their strength work every week or every 2 weeks because they're just getting stronger and stronger. Look at you, Pete. Pete was a rower, he's a rower. Okay, you've never been on a proper program. I'm not saying I'm bagging him, but you've never been on a periodised model for a program. And one of the first things he noticed was he got really strong quite quickly because we had a strength program for him. We didn't want to get him any bigger because he rose in a weight division. So we're getting much more than 75 kilos. Once he goes to 75, he's got to row on the next division. So we had to keep his weight under 75, but we had to get him stronger. So we did a little bit of this, we didn't do much of it. We put him straight onto here and straight onto here, and then straight onto here. Power endurance for his competition phase.
And I say in the first 6 to 8 weeks, I stayed the same weight. I lost 1.5 kilos fat, put 1.5 kilos muscle on, and I'm 50 years old, so I was pretty rapid with that.
But his lifting age was down here. Now his lifting age is up here. I can't even get that tall. And he's not going to keep getting that gain. That will start to slow down. Not because of his age, just because of his work he's done. Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments? So, one of the markers in the pre-season phase is to see how powerful people are. Now, the Broncos have got every sort of powerful, we've got them here, piece of apparatus, this pixelated, this before, but they do what they call a single leg 3 jump squat, hop. So they hop for 3 times on their right and left leg when they're fit and well. And they do that at a regular basis to see how far they can go on each leg. So say they get an ankle injury or whatever, they've got that as a yardstick to say, well, this guy can return to play if he can still get 9 metres or 10 metres or whatever in his 3 jumps. But it also gives you an indication as to how much more powerful you're coming with your leg drive because it's a single leg hop. People do a double leg hop. We use things like gym-aware and a power platform here to generate power. But we're not talking about the power yet. That's getting closer to the season. Right? So this is, I think, an example of hypertrophy. So this is the most basic form of hypertrophy training, overloading the eccentric phase. So here, she's pulling down and she's going up by times slower than the concentric phase. He's pulling up fast, but slower on the way down.
So the time under tension on the eccentric phase is far greater. Squatting, slow down, fast up. It's far greater on the eccentric phase than it is the concentric phase. And these are people, athletes from all different sports. Slow down, pause, fast up. Slow down, fast up. That's the easiest way to overload the eccentric phase. So when we damage the muscles eccentrically, we get the greatest form of supercompensation. Muscle regeneration and muscle development. Okay. So this is what most of us would be looking at doing in our general preparation phase. Now when we get to this specific preparation phase, we've got bigger, now we've got to get stronger. Count how many reps he does. 3. This is the January-February period before the Broncos play their first game. Look how many Petro does. And I think that's 165 or 155. Very heavy weight, small amount of repetition. Two repetitions. So 2 RM, 97% of his 1 RM. 2 repetition maximum. But now, we're developing this part. We introduce this part to become more powerful. And this is what it shows in the games. See, when Rob McQueen asked me to come to the Wallabies from the Broncos in the 97 season, he said we've got to become more powerful because the All Blacks and the Springboks are belting the crap out of us when we play. We're losing all the one-on-one contests. You know, we're getting put backwards all the time. So one of the things we worked on straight away was developing strength and then developing power. It's just an overload system. So as the chains come off the ground, the weight gets heavier and heavier as your biomechanically bench press position gets stronger and stronger. It's called a isokinetic contraction. This bloke was one of the strongest guys in the gym when I was there. Even when he was a good player and when he was an ordinary player. Okay? Or any questions on that? So, is there any questions on the resistance training aspect of the pre-season? Of course, we've got to bring in power here. Okay, we've got to, and we introduce the three main things that make you run faster and more powerful, and it's scientifically proven. One of them is plyometrics, which we do a lot of here. Is plyometric boxes, bounding. Okay. The second one is resistance training. Resistance running. Okay, either towing a sled, towing a parachute, pushing a sled, and the third one is ballistic movements in the gym. Jump squats, lateral jumps. Okay, those 3 things in combination have been proven to improve your power. So your Olympic lifting, very, very important. Okay, your cleans, your snatches, your push presses, all those fast movements in the gym, because they provide the speed component to drive the strength component that helps the power. You can't neglect speed and you can't neglect strength. If you neglect one of them, your power will drop off. Okay? Any questions about that?
With limited off seasons, you haven't got time to do a vibration phase, a strength phase. You have to pick one.
If I had the kids and I was doing, I would leave this out and leave this for the season, and I'd just work on getting them bigger, because it's a window. Once they start playing, especially contact games, their level of training drops very quickly. Whether it's psychological or it's physiological, but most coaches drop off their level of training. And only, when you're not playing games, you can lift 6 times a week. Most clubs lift 4 times a week on a double split program. Okay, 3 whole body programs or 4 half body programs. But when the rugby league or rugby union obviously will start, they go back to 2 sessions of lifting a week, sometimes 3 sessions every 2 weeks. And it's just a maintenance phase. So whatever you get here for the start of the season, that's, especially contact sport, I'm talking about all sports, is usually the highest level you're going to get. And the next lecture we give here is going to be on how do we hang on to that during the season. But at the moment we're trying to get it, we're getting money in the bank. So if you're playing against, we're talking today, playing against big Polynesian people, they're bigger and stronger and more powerful naturally. But we know that, especially in rugby league and rugby union. There's not many colleges playing Aussie rules. Why is that? I don't know either, but I'm just letting you know because there's a mad Aussie rules. So, if you've got to play the sport and you've got to get bigger to get more powerful, then you've got a good window in the off-season, or especially the pre-season, is to drive the hypertrophy work into it.
I coach local hockey side who obviously don't like training. They don't like doing fitness or anything. If I'm normally the pre-season for us is Queen's Park, a couple of times around, do some sprints, whatever. And I'm lucky I get them for an hour. How do I bring something like that in where they won't want to come to a gym or anything like that? What can I use as a,
Good question. If people don't want to come to training, it's either because they don't think they're going to get anything out of it, it's not enjoyable enough. I'm not saying it's not enjoyable enough because a lot of people just don't, especially kids, young people don't know. But my suggestion is you try to encourage them to come to a place like this and where you've got a program and they train with their peers and they can see the benefits of it. But you can do a lot of this hypertrophy work with your own body weight in a park. We've devised programs here at this very gym to do outside for people who don't have access to dumbbells and barbells and lat pull-down machines. You can do a hell of a lot, without resistance. Members just can be anything. It just got to be a resistance. You know what? Brent Livermore, I'm not dropping names about hockey, but I used to be a hockey player in my first life. Now, I was fortunate enough to play with 2 Australian captains, and when Brent Livermore won the gold medal, I saw him just after they won the gold medal, the first gold medal that the men had ever won. I think it was in Seoul. I was overseas at the time, and I saw him at Christmas time when I came home, and he said one of the biggest differences we've made in the men's hockey team is we started doing weight training. He said because the first thing it did, it gave us a massive amount of confidence when we played the Dutch and we played the Belgians and the Pommies and the Kiwis and stuff. When we played those teams, we started to feel like we could match them physically. And then we started to realise we could hit the ball a lot harder and we could take a lot more bumps and we could recover quicker. And that's in a non-contact sport. Hockey's got contact. But see, it's not all about getting bigger, resistance training or whatever. I'm not answering your question, I know now, but it's about getting better at the sport. It'll help you in some way to get better at the sport. Even if it's just the fact that it makes you more confident in yourself. But I get them to, in the park, just do the slow stuff, slow eccentric work. We've got some programs here actually. We did one a couple of weeks ago with exactly for that reason. No equipment. So
how well do the athletes know what they're doing, or do they just come in and do what the trainer said?
I don't know if you're here tonight, but I was just telling those volleyball people that's why we're doing that exercise. And I think it's very, very important when we tell those young blokes that to get them to take ownership of what they're doing because it's their bodies you're changing. And you're changing for a reason. And the reason is they're going to be physically better, but it's going to help them in the sport they're playing. So we're talking to, I forget what I was explaining up there today, but I was explaining something to do with that's right with the abs. How we're doing an eccentric work on our abdominals with the ab roller. And one of the girls asked me why we're going at an angle, and I said because we're trying to get our obliques that cause extension to do that movement. Okay? Which you do a lot in hockey, in soccer, in rugby, in your tackle. And that's the best way to get those abdominals, the ones below your navel, the oblique ones, working functionally. And that's why we did it. She was quite interested in that fact. See, if you can't, I tell them, again, if If you can't justify why they're doing an exercise, you shouldn't be doing it. You know, if you can get the work done in 40 minutes, not an hour, get it done in 40 minutes and you go and do something else. More doesn't mean better. So, fortunately, these guys are pretty smart. Very smart. And we sit down and have think tanks every Wednesday. We just have think tanks about programming. You sat in it today just for a couple of different sports.
Steve, you just want to explain what the process is? Like, I think you were asking more so along the lines of how you get an athlete like snap, like just let them listen to you type thing. So as a young boy.
No, I just wondered, like, if you played with the Broncos for 10 years, you could probably walk out as a personal, you know, a trainer for a club. Because if you knew all this.
Some are interested, some aren't. Okay? Some are. Wayne Bennett's not interested in that. He's just interested in the end product. If it's going to make him play better rugby league, then he's. Rob McQueen wasn't that interested in it. You know, if I told him they're running faster or they can do stuff, they can tackle harder, he was very interested in that. But he wasn't that interested if I said he can eccentrically load his bench presses at 120 kilos for 5 seconds. And he trained. I mean, they all trained and stuff, but they weren't that interested in it. But what we found is the big stick approach doesn't work. Getting the big stick out and saying, you've got to bloody turn up the trainer, I'm going to kick you up the backside. It don't work. And so we had, once a month, I used to run an education class at the Broncos. I did it at the Wallabies, I did it over at Fulham. I tried to do it at Fulham, they weren't interested. I did it at Leeds regularly, with the rugby union players. They were interested in why we were doing certain things. And if you could get them interested, then they take ownership. So when you come into the gym, it's not, we just stop talking and get on with it. They're getting on with it because they know it's doing them good. You know, the only thing that the English footballers and soccer players were interested in, one day I came in and I said, if you can get your glutes stronger and your lower abs stronger, it'll put about 2 or 3 years on your playing career, and they all started to do it. Because they knew that was working on a couple $100 million at some stage. That's true. See, some people aren't interested in it. They're not. But yeah, I mean, you're right. If they took note of what they were doing, a lot of them go into training when they finish playing. They go into running businesses, the sporting people. So, the conditioning component we look at is anything outside of the resistance training or the weights training. So the conditioning depends on what your sport is. But the principle here is we go from the general preparation, which is broad-based, into specific training. Aerobic work, if your sport's got an aerobic component, we normally go from general preparation to specific aerobic work. We go from what we call extensive work, more volume, to less volume and higher intensity. So you go from extensive model to an intensive model. Okay? And so another way to look at it is general to specific preparation. You're specifically preparing them after the Christmas period, in that specific preparation phase, to play that sport. Whereas before Christmas, we used to look at generally getting everyone fitter. Bigger, stronger, aerobically fitter, injury-free and so forth. And as the season gets closer, and you've got a sport that's got a big anaerobic component, which most team sports have. Netball, hockey, they've got to play for it. Well, hockey's changed. I know they play 4 15-minute quarters down there. It used to be two. You don't? What, do you still play halves? 35-minute halves? Well, even if you do, you're still running for 35 minutes. You know, I don't know if you interchange in that period of time, but at high level they do interchange. They normally only play now about 3 minutes at a time. So it's a bit like the Aussie rules. They play 3 or 4 minutes at a time and then they pull them off, recover, go back on again. Sevens rugby's very simple. So it's changed. But if you've got an aerobic sport with an anaerobic component where you've got to run, it's not a marathon where you're running the same pace. You've got to accelerate, decelerate, jump, tackle, get off the ground, you know, all these different things. Then you've got to start introducing the anaerobic components to drive off the aerobic components, but also to drive off the strength. So we're only talking about these middle two. Okay? General preparation, specific preparation. If your sport's not a really high level, I'm not belittling it, then meld these into one. Just call it the pre-season. Just and do a little bit of everything in it to get it ready. you might have enough time. You might have 2 months for the whole pre-season, which is quite common. January, February, play March. Okay? Because in most sports, once the season starts, the level of training must drop. And you've got to try and hang on to what you've got. That's the rule. That's the hardest part, especially contact sports. So, we've got hockey, we've got rugby league. What other sports we've got? Athletics. You've got rugby sevens, Aussie rules, cricket, boxing. Depends, how do you identify what's required? What's required, you know? We sit up there and we say, what's required for a sport? Is it an aerobic sport? Yes. Is it not an aerobic sport? Then it's only for general health that you do aerobic training. It's not going to help you. You know, American football, gridiron, the ball's in play for about 3.5 seconds of play. That's all. And she's over. 3.5 seconds. Now, is aerobic capacity a critical thing for American footballers? No. All right, and I remember going, you know, I was lucky enough to go to the Edinburgh Broncos because of our association with the Brisbane Broncos. And I remember going to the pre-season camp, and the guy says, right, I've got some boys going to do some aerobic training today. I said, oh, good, do you mind if I come and watch? And they did 400 metres at about 3/4 pace. And I thought that was their warm-up. That was their aerobic session. It was just like a jog around the track and drink of water and jog around the track and drink, but that was it. Because when you look at it, I said, what do you think? And I said, oh, it's not what we're used to, but it's not what's required. Okay. But you've got to look at your sport. Sometimes you must look at the position they play in the sport too. You know, does a goalkeeper in soccer do the same training as a midfielder? No. Average distance a goalkeeper runs in an EPL is a good question. Don't you guys answer it? What's the most? Has anyone ever shown on a time motion analysis for a goalkeeper in the EPL that he's run? The most. That's a goalie in soccer, okay, plays for about 96 minutes. How far do you reckon? Okay? 500 metres. That's what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. When I had a look at the stat sheets, goalkeepers constantly run 4Ks and sometimes they run 6Ks. I can't believe it either. But you know how long they move in any one play? It's less than a second to a maximum of 6 seconds. That's the most we could find on any past footage. In other words, they went and made a save, they got to their feet, they made another save, then they had to run out the ball and get the ball, 6 seconds. So would they do the same running type and volume as the midfielder? No. So we've got to have a look at what's required. What's a midfielder run in English football? 12 to 14 Ks, bread and butter. Striker, 10 to 12 Ks. But a central defender, this is getting very specific, the two blokes that stand in front of the goalie, they run between 6 and 8 Ks, which is not much more than the goalie. And when you have a look at the way they play, they just cover this little area themselves. They don't get out of that little area. A bit like netball, positions in netball. Okay, but the funny thing about it is 2/3 of their running is backwards and sideways. 2/3 of it. So I said, do you ever do any running backwards and sideways? No. Why? And they said, because we always run forward when we do our training. So I actually got them to run in their training backwards and sideways. So when they did a conditioning set, instead of always running like this, they were running like this, because that's what they're doing in the game for 2/3 of their conditioning. So I was looking at the actual specific requirement for that position. How do you identify it? We look at either two things. The easiest way is to look at energy production or the components of fitness or both. Is it an anaerobic sport, purely anaerobic? Is it an anaerobic sport that's got a little bit of aerobic component? Is it a 50-50? Anaerobic, no oxygen, anaerobic? Or is it mainly aerobic with a little bit of anaerobic? Or is it like the marathon that's all aerobic? Is it a 100-metre sprint that's all anaerobic? So we've got to have a look at that, what's required. Okay? And we've got to understand then the difference between generally preparing someone and specifically preparing someone. So we might give in the general preparation, and we've done it with the Mustangs program, repeat 100s or repeat 200s. Up and back at the football field, or up only. We might, that's in the general. In the specific preparation, we might give them repeat 200s, but they might be 20 metres out and back for 200, or repeat 100s, they might be 5 10s out and back. They're still running the same distance, but we're getting more specific into what they're doing. And then if it gets really specific, they run 8 metres and hit a hit shield and drop and get back while the other guys run out 12 metres, decelerate and sprint back. That's getting even more and more specific as the season starts to get closer. Okay? I know it's a big area to cover this because this is where most of your work gets done this time of the year. This is when this part of the season finished when I was in professional sport, we actually went out and had a party, the coaches. Because it was a finish of most of the big volume of work we had. Because once the season starts, it's just a matter of, in the pre-season we're pushing this big tractor wheel, trying to get it started, getting all this stuff done, and we're getting it going faster and faster, and then the season starts, we've just got to give a little touch on every now and then. All the hard work gets done. And that's the analogy I like to think about. So this is just some guys doing some, I think, interval training. These are actual runners, okay? Various forms of interval training. And interval training is the best method, what you use. These are repeat hill sprints. This girl went to the Olympic Games at University of Queensland. So they repeat, sprint up the hill, jog back down. It's good to bring a bit of elevation, aerobically elevation. Maintains your aerobic component a little bit longer than flat running. Again, hills again, but this is on a hard surface. Next slide, I think, is a guy running, he's a marathon runner, he's doing repeat 400, so he'll do 400 slowly, you'll hit the mark, so fast, and then he'll go slow. So here he goes, he does an effort, so they're called continuous intervals. Alright, there's a whole lot of ways to do it. The beauty of interval training is we can modify the time under effort, the level under effort, and how much recovery you have. Unfortunately, when you do pure athletic interval training for team sports, it doesn't work in a specific preparation. What do you reckon that is? So in other words, if we're going to do repeat 400s and I take Corey out and I say, righto, we're going to do repeat 400s and we're going to do a 400, I want you to do it in 75 seconds and you're going to have 4 minutes rest before you do your next one. Okay? And we do that right up to the pre-season and in season we keep doing it. Now what happens to Corey when he's playing, the Melbourne Storm and he runs really hard for 75 seconds and then he can't tell Cameron Smith, hey Cameron, could you slow down a bit because I normally have a bit of a rest and I got to take it easy for a little bit because don't run as fast, mate. You've got to slow down a little bit. You can't do that. So you've got to make your interval training more specific to your sport. So for example, in the Guinness Premiership in the rugby union, there's balls in play for 90 seconds on average. We looked at thousands and thousands of videos. When I was at the Broncos, I looked with Kevin Waters. How long a set of 6 took. With digital cameras, we looked at the far, and the Roosters were the ones going the fastest at the time we looked at it. They could go 2 seconds faster, okay, on a set of 6. In other words, they could get to their feet and play the ball quicker on average and get a set of 6. They were the quickest to get a set of 6 out clean, kick chase and make the first contact. And we looked at why. At no stage they were winning the rest. They had guys backing up the run for the kick chase and all these little things that just give you a little bit more of an advantage. And you guys haven't got GPS. You haven't got it. But you can be smart enough to know that if the person plays 35 minutes of hockey and they're playing a position that's got a lot of running, then they, at some stage when the season's getting closer and closer, they've got to be mimicking part of that game in their training. They've got to be. I've been to a lot of clubs as a consultant, and the coaches train here, heart rate monitors, GPS data, their training levels here, but the playing levels up here. They think they're going really well, but they're missing about 20% of the high-end stuff. It's a fact, even an elite sport, professional sport. Okay, so this is an example of the pre-season of Fulham. I've tried to give you as many sports as I've been involved in. That repeat hundreds. It used to kill these blokes, and they used to love doing stuff for the football. So we developed all these general pre-seasons, getting different in pre-season and in-season. Pre-season was general and pre-season specific. Because they only had an 8-week block for the whole lot, so we had to meld them into the two. They did a hell of a lot of pre-app work going in pre-season because they had a lot of injury imbalances. So a lot of their conditioning with this coach was done with the ball. The third coach I had, he didn't like conditioning. He reckoned that they just had to play soccer. That's why I probably left. That season there, they finished 8th, which is a big effort for them. Strength work, but now we're starting to develop the anaerobic components. A lot of their control work, their lower abs, he's a smart ass, that bloke. Okay. But a lot of the work they do is with activities they do on a game. Now that's a goalkeeper. This guy's a central defender. Look, that's why he's running up from the timing gates. Five, 10 metre, 20 metre, 20 metre flying, 40 metre sprints. Again, the 40 metre was too long. This is a bit of hypertrophy work at the start of the season. We did a hell of a lot of glute work, running backwards. Because we had everything that bells and whistles, everything that test, if they wanted it, we went and bought it. I didn't have a budget, I just used to say, you get whatever you want. They didn't like the weights because they were afraid they were getting too big. But when I introduced power work to them and ballistic power movements, they started to see the benefits. They started to see that they actually started to run faster. They started to jump higher. They started to become more resistant to injury.
The guys that haven't done a lot of resistance training at the start, like the end of their career, do you find you have to do much stuff? Do they change? Definitely.
We took some of these guys right back to the under 13, under 14 type programs you do in Australia. We took them right back and showed them what they did. And we did an hour's training 2 days a week in the gym, but a lot of the time was 30 minutes of prehab and just showing them how to do stuff, and only about 30 minutes of work. This was the pre-season trials, so there's no one in the crowd. This is a lot of their weights work. They had a lot of groin imbalances because their glutes they kick with 1 foot most of them. So you did a hell of a lot of glute and groin work. So they did the slide ball. They did a lot of the glute work we've introduced here in this gym. A lot of glute med, glute max, glute min work. A lot of lower abdominal work. And these are all positions. You know, he's a goalie, he's a wide running fullback, he's a midfielder. All from different countries. That bloke comes from Iceland. He's a German, the bloke down the bottom. He's a Pom. There wasn't many Poms in the team. That was a good hamstring machine that we're talking about today. We thought that would be great. We actually made that with that company, Sport Test. We only sold 2 of them to both of the Fulham. And that was about half an hour of every hour session. But it reduces soft tissue injuries massively. this is in a rugby union club. Just if you keep it on that, can you still that sort? This is we gave a specific program each time we lifted, so we mixed the prehab up, so that it adds together the proprioception work for their ankles and their knees. They did some rotator cuff work, external internal rotation. They did a lot of glute work, and I don't know what's down the bottom. So each day we went in, they did something a little bit different. We kept the thread going, so we gave them a bit of variety because they lifted a lot. These guys they lifted 4 times a week in the pre-season. So you'll see them doing it now. They were very, very good at this work because they realised the benefit of being able to do this work and actually play more games during the year. This is up in the north of England, up in Leeds. Had no money, the club, but they were a really, really good organisation. I really enjoyed working with them. So we look at ratios, the same ratio we apply here. There's that's all the forwards in the squad. I think there was 25, so there were 3 coaches with this group of 25. Now you can't have that luxury, I know, when you go back home. But here, this is the ratio we try to work on. Sort of 8 to 10 people have 1 coach, and it works. So good min work. Good min work, good mean work. So all the control exercises. Proprioception work for your glutes, handshakes. And this actually carries right throughout the whole year. If you do a hell of a lot of it because you've got more time, you're not playing, we introduce a lot more into their pre-season preparation. A lot of shoulder injuries in contact sports, so we do a lot of external internal rotation. Dumbbells and TheraBand. Okay. So let's look at the resistance training and conditioning, the first 2 areas we're looking at. I want to touch on recovery. This is short-term recovery during the training week and long-term recovery. In other words, after the season's over, you've got to have periods of time off. I'll go over short-term recovery. We'll look at the AIS stance. Australian Strength and Conditioning Association have done a review of literature on current methods. But the bottom line is the most important aspect of recovery has got to be sleep and rest. You've got to have it. If you don't sleep, your body won't regenerate damaged tissue. In other words, you know what it's like when you're tired. Well, you exercise and get tired, and you don't get the benefit of the exercise program. If you play a game, a hard game, and don't get adequate sleep, you won't recover the next day. You won't recover the day after. And there's a lot of evidence that proves that. And nutrition is very, very important. In other words, fluid content. I'll talk about that a little bit. Periodising your model. Warming down, stretching sometimes, and stretching is important. Massage, not as much. Hydrotherapy is important when the cold, it's used a lot of cold ice baths and so forth. Not a lot of evidence about it, really, but it's used probably the most widespread of the methods of recovery. Using compression garments, a little bit of evidence to suggest it works. Relaxation techniques, various travel strategies when you're travelling, you're going away to play. What you do when you've got a long drive or a long plane trip back, what are the best things? They work. Okay? So, if we look at